The terrifying thing about silence is that sometimes, it notices danger before anyone else does. Rain hammered against the glass walls of the Beaumont Grand Hotel hard enough to make the entire lobby shimmer silver beneath the chandelier light. Midnight in Manhattan always looked expensive from the outside. Gold reflections. Black cars. Men in tailored coats stepping into warmth while the rest of the city drowned in February rain. But from where I stood behind my housekeeping cart, all I saw were fingerprints on marble and another 6 hours left in my shift. My hearing aid crackled softly inside my left ear. Static. Then muffled sound. Then nothing again. I tapped it twice with cold fingers, trying to force the tiny device back to life. It responded with a shrill burst that made me flinch before settling into distorted noise. Great. Just great. Room service carts rolled across the lobby behind me, their wheels vibrating faintly through the polished floor. That was how I understood the world most nights. Vibrations. Shadows. Lip movements. Tiny visual clues everyone else ignored because they could rely on sound. I couldn't. I adjusted the sleeve of my gray uniform and pushed my cart toward the private elevator hallway on the 32nd floor. The VIP level. The kind of place where politicians cheated on their wives and billionaires pretended they were decent people. The hallway smelled like expensive cologne and fresh lilies. Soft golden lights glowed against black marble walls. Quiet. Too quiet. My stomach tightened instantly. I stopped outside suite 3208. Something was wrong. I couldn't hear clearly, but I felt it. Tiny vibrations beneath my shoes. Heavy footsteps. Fast. Controlled. I looked down. A thin streak of dark red slid slowly beneath the hotel room door. My breath caught. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. Call security. Pretend I never saw it. That was what invisible people were supposed to do. Keep their heads down. Survive. But then the door across the hall opened slightly. A man stepped out wearing black gloves and a dark suit. His lips moved toward another man farther down the hallway. I only caught 3 words. Moretti. Elevator. Tonight. My pulse slammed hard enough to hurt. Moretti. I knew that name. Everybody in New York knew that name even if nobody said it too loudly. Adrian Moretti. Hotels lowered their voices when he checked in. Men twice my size moved out of his way. Rumors followed him like shadows. Dangerous. Untouchable. I should have walked away right then. Instead, I looked toward the private elevator at the end of the hallway just as the gold numbers lit up. Rising. 30. 31. 32. The doors slid open. And he stepped out. Tall. Dark overcoat still wet from rain. Black hair brushed back neatly. Gray eyes colder than winter glass. 2 men in suits followed several feet behind him, scanning the hallway with the kind of calm that didn't feel human. Adrian Moretti walked like the building already belonged to him. Like the city did. Then I saw movement behind suite 3208. Fast movement. A shadow lifting something metallic. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I dropped the towels in my hands and rushed forward, grabbing the sleeve of Adrian's coat hard enough to wrinkle the fabric. His body reacted instantly. Tense. Dangerous. His guard stepped toward me. But I was already staring directly into his eyes. Run, I whispered. For 1 second, confusion crossed his face. Then the hallway exploded behind him in shattered glass and sparks. The world turned into motion and broken light. 1 second Adrian Moretti stood in front of me beneath the golden hallway lamps. The next, his arm wrapped around my waist so fast my breath disappeared completely. My back slammed against his chest as he dragged me sideways behind the marble corner near the elevator. Glass burst across the hallway behind us in a glittering storm. I did not hear the sound clearly. My hearing aid shrieked with distorted static before dying altogether. Silence swallowed everything. Terrible silence. But I felt the vibrations through the floor. Sharp. Violent. Fast. Someone was shouting. I could not make out the words. Adrian's body stayed pressed protectively in front of mine, one hand locked around my wrist hard enough to keep me grounded while his other arm shielded my head. His coat smelled like rain and cedar and cold winter air. One of the guards moved toward the hallway entrance, speaking urgently into an earpiece. Another crouched beside Adrian, lips moving quickly. I only caught fragments. Car downstairs, not safe, move now. Adrian did not look away from me. His eyes stayed fixed on my face with an intensity that made my pulse stumble. Not fear exactly. Calculation. Like he was trying to solve me. You saw them? He asked. I barely heard the words, mostly reading his lips. I nodded quickly. Another vibration shook the floor. Closer this time. The lights flickered overhead. My chest tightened so badly it hurt. I hated moments like this. Moments when the world became too fast for me to understand. Too many moving mouths. Too many shadows. Too much silence inside chaos. Adrian noticed immediately. I saw it happen in his expression. The shift. His eyes dropped briefly toward the small hearing aid tucked behind my ear. Broken now. Useless. Understanding crossed his face almost instantly. Look at me, he said slowly, making sure I could read every word. Stay with me. Nobody had ever spoken to me like that before. Not patient. Not careful. Most people got frustrated after repeating themselves twice. Adrian Moretti adjusted without hesitation. One of the guards suddenly grabbed my arm. His mouth moved sharply. She comes later. Adrian's reaction was immediate. Cold. Absolute. He pulled me back against him before the guard could take another step. No, even without sound, the force of that single word filled the hallway. The guard froze. Adrian tightened his grip on my wrist. She stays with me. My heartbeat stumbled again. I should have been terrified of him. Every headline I had ever seen about Adrian Moretti painted him as dangerous. Ruthless. Untouchable. Men like him existed in dark corners of New York. Nobody survived for long. But right then, crouched beside him beneath flickering chandelier light while strangers hunted him through a luxury hotel, he felt like the only solid thing in the room. Another tremor rolled beneath the marble floor. Adrian looked toward the hallway. Then back at me. Decision made. Can you walk? He asked carefully. I nodded. He released my wrist only long enough to remove his coat and wrap it around my shoulders. The expensive black wool swallowed me completely, still warm from his body heat. Then his hand returned to mine. Firm. Certain. Possessive in a way that should have scared me more than it did. We moved quickly through the service corridor behind the VIP suites. Bright hotel lights disappeared behind us, replaced by narrow maintenance hallways and humming fluorescent bulbs. My shoes slipped slightly on damp tile as I struggled to keep pace beside him. Adrian never let go of my hand once. Not even when another guard rushed toward us from the stairwell looking pale and tense. The man stopped short when he saw me. His lips formed one stunned sentence. You brought the maid? Adrian did not even slow down. His gray eyes stayed forward as he answered coldly, she is the reason I am still alive. Rain blurred the city into silver streaks outside the underground parking garage as Adrian guided me toward a black SUV waiting beside a concrete pillar. The air smelled like gasoline, wet pavement, and winter cold creeping through the open security gate. Men in dark coats moved around us with controlled urgency, speaking too fast for me to follow. Their mouths opened and closed like scenes from a silent movie I had never asked to be part of. My pulse still had not slowed down. Every few seconds I glanced over my shoulder expecting shadows to appear behind us again. Adrian noticed. He noticed everything. Claire. His voice cut through the haze softly enough for me to read his lips clearly. Look at me. I did. Rainwater darkened strands of his black hair near his forehead. His gray eyes stayed calm despite the tension surrounding us. Calm in a way that almost felt unreal. Like danger followed him so often he had stopped reacting to it years ago. You are safe right now, he said slowly. Safe. The word twisted painfully in my chest because I could not remember the last time anyone had said it to me and actually meant it. One of the guards opened the SUV door. Another man approached quickly from across the garage holding a phone against his ear. Older. Broad shoulders. Silver at his temples. His expression hardened the second he saw me standing beside Adrian. His lips moved sharply. This is reckless. Adrian answered without even looking at him. She saw their faces. Then we relocate her somewhere else. Adrian finally turned. The coldness in his expression made the older man fall silent immediately. Nobody separates her from my protection. The words hit me harder than they should have. Protection. Not hostage. Not witness. Protection. I wrapped Adrian's coat tighter around myself as another freezing gust swept through the garage. My hearing aid stayed dead and silent behind my ear, leaving the entire world muted except for faint distorted vibrations. The silence always felt heavier during storms. Bigger somehow. Adrian studied my face for a long moment before reaching carefully toward my ear. His movements slowed deliberately, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I did not. His fingers brushed lightly near the broken hearing aid. Gentle. Unexpectedly gentle. It stopped working, he asked. I nodded once. Embarrassment warmed my cheeks instantly. I hated explaining my hearing loss to strangers. Hated the awkward pity that usually followed. But Adrian only held my gaze steadily. No pity. No discomfort. Just focus. Can you hear anything at all? Some vibrations, I admitted quietly. Not words. His jaw tightened slightly. Not frustration. Something else. Anger maybe. Not at me. At the situation. The older man beside him was still watching me carefully, suspicion written across every line of his face. Adrian, he warned again, slower this time so I could read his lips too. You do not know her. Adrian's answer came instantly. I know she warned me when everyone else missed it. Then his eyes returned to mine. Get in the car, Claire. The way he said my name sent a strange warmth through me despite the freezing rain. Like he had already decided I belonged inside his world now whether I understood that or not. I climbed into the SUV with shaking hands. The leather seats smelled expensive and clean. Soft amber lights glowed overhead while rain tapped steadily against the tinted windows. Adrian slid in beside me a second later. Close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. Outside, the garage gates slowly opened toward the empty Manhattan streets. One of the guards spoke urgently through the front seat, but Adrian barely reacted. His attention stayed fixed on me instead. Why did you help me? He asked quietly. I swallowed hard. Because I did not have a good answer. Because invisible people usually survived by looking away. Because men like Adrian Moretti brought danger everywhere they went. But when I saw death waiting behind that hotel room door and realized he had no idea it was there, my body moved before fear could stop me. I stared down at my trembling hands. I do not know, I whispered honestly. Adrian watched me for another long silent moment. Then very slowly, almost carefully, He reached over and pulled the seatbelt across my chest himself. His knuckles brushed my shoulder lightly in the process. "That," he said softly, "might have saved your life too." Manhattan disappeared behind dark-tinted windows as the SUV moved deeper into the city. Rain streamed across the glass in silver lines, distorting traffic lights into blurred streaks of red and gold. I sat frozen beside Adrian Moretti with his coat wrapped tightly around my shoulders, trying to understand how my normal night had shattered so completely in less than 20 minutes. One moment I had been replacing towels in luxury hotel suites. The next, I was hidden inside a bulletproof SUV beside the most feared man in New York while strangers searched for both of us. My hands would not stop shaking. I curled them together in my lap, hoping nobody would notice. Adrian noticed anyway. He noticed everything. "You are cold." I looked up as he spoke slowly enough for me to read his lips clearly. Before I could answer, he reached toward the control panel near the door and adjusted the heat higher. Warm air slowly filled the vehicle. Such a small thing. But something about it made my chest ache unexpectedly. Most people treated my hearing loss like inconvenience. Adrian adjusted to it without hesitation. The SUV finally slowed beneath a towering black building overlooking the East River. No signs. No visible name. Just polished stone walls and armed security standing beneath the covered entrance while rain hammered against the pavement around them. The guards moved quickly the second Adrian stepped out of the vehicle. Umbrellas opened instantly above him. Above me too. Nobody touched me except Adrian himself. His hand stayed firmly against my back as we entered the private elevator lobby. Gold lights reflected softly against black marble floors. Quiet luxury. The kind built for people who never worried about money or consequences. I suddenly became painfully aware of my damp housekeeping uniform and cheap sneakers leaving rainwater across imported stone. Adrian glanced down at me once. Then toward one of the women waiting near the elevator. "Get her dry clothes," he ordered calmly. "And call someone about her hearing aid." My breath caught slightly. "You do not have to do that." His eyes shifted toward me immediately. "Yes," he said simply. "I do." The elevator opened into a massive penthouse wrapped in floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The city lights glittered endlessly beyond the rain. Everything inside looked sharp and expensive. Black furniture. Warm amber lighting. Fresh white orchids near the fireplace. Beautiful in the same cold way Adrian himself was beautiful. Controlled. Untouchable. Dangerous. I stopped just inside the doorway, overwhelmed by how out of place I felt standing there. Adrian removed his watch slowly while one of the guards approached with a tablet in hand. The older silver-haired man from the garage stood nearby watching me again with visible distrust. "Background check came back clean," the guard reported. "Claire Bennett. 26. Queen's address. No criminal record." Adrian sat down calmly on the leather sofa without taking his eyes off me. "Family?" "None nearby." The answer landed strangely hard inside the room. No family nearby. Such clinical words for something that still hurt after all these years. Adrian noticed my expression change instantly. His gaze softened slightly before returning to the guard. "Anyone close to her?" "No boyfriend." "No emergency contact listed besides the hotel." "Invisible girl." "Just like always." Adrian leaned back slowly, studying me with those unreadable gray eyes while the city storm reflected across the windows behind him. "Leave us," he said finally. The room emptied almost immediately. Guards disappeared through quiet hallways until only Adrian and I remained standing beneath the soft amber lights. Silence settled between us. Heavy. Strange. I should have been terrified alone with him. Instead I mostly felt exhausted. Adrian loosened the cuffs of his black shirt slowly before speaking again. "Do you know why they tried to kill me tonight?" I shook my head honestly. "No, do you know who those men were?" "No," he nodded once. Like he believed me completely. Then his eyes lowered briefly toward my trembling hands. "But you still warned me." I swallowed hard beneath his steady gaze. I could not just stand there. Something unreadable crossed his face then. Not surprise. Not amusement. Something quieter. More dangerous somehow. Adrian stood and walked toward me slowly until barely 2 feet separated us. Up close, he felt overwhelming. Tall. Calm. Controlled power wrapped inside a black dress shirt and storm gray eyes. "Most people would have walked away," he said softly. "You did not." Then very gently, almost carefully, Adrian Moretti reached forward and brushed a rain-soaked strand of hair away from my face. I did not know what frightened me more that night. The men waiting in the hotel hallway or the way Adrian Moretti touched me like I mattered. His fingers brushed gently through my damp hair for only a second before he stepped back again, but the warmth of it stayed trapped beneath my skin long after. Nobody moved carefully around invisible girls. Nobody looked at us like we were worth protecting. Adrian did both without thinking. A woman named Sophia arrived 20 minutes later carrying folded clothes and a small medical case. She smiled softly when she saw me standing awkwardly near the penthouse window still wrapped in Adrian's coat. "Come with me," she said slowly enough for me to read her lips. "I will help with your hearing aid." The guest suite she led me into looked bigger than my entire apartment in Queens. Cream-colored walls. A king-sized bed. Untouched beneath soft lighting. Rain sliding quietly across the massive windows overlooking the river. Everything smelled clean and expensive. Sophia knelt carefully beside me while examining the broken hearing aid beneath a bright lamp. The internal speaker cracked, she explained gently. "I can stabilize it tonight, but you will need a replacement tomorrow." I nodded quietly. Replacement hearing aids cost more money than I had ever managed to save. Sophia must have seen the panic cross my face because she touched my arm reassuringly. "Do not worry. Mr. Moretti already paid for it." Of course he had. The thought unsettled me more than it should have. Men like Adrian did not notice housekeeping staff. They certainly did not buy them medical equipment after midnight. 30 minutes later I stepped out of the guest room wearing soft gray sweatpants and an oversized black sweater someone had left folded neatly on the bed for me. My damp uniform was gone. My old life suddenly felt gone too. The penthouse remained quiet except for the low glow of city lights reflecting against dark marble floors. I spotted Adrian near the fireplace, sleeves rolled slightly past his wrists while he read something on a tablet. Without the suit jacket and overcoat, he looked somehow more dangerous. More real. Sharp shoulders beneath black fabric. Strong hands resting calmly against the glass of whiskey beside him. Controlled power in human form. He looked up the second I entered the room. "Better?" he asked slowly. I touched the repaired hearing aid near my ear. "A little." Adrian nodded once before setting the tablet aside. "Sit." The word should have sounded commanding. Instead it felt strangely careful. I sat cautiously on the opposite end of the leather sofa, leaving enough distance between us to breathe normally again. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Somewhere far below, Manhattan traffic glowed through the storm like rivers of gold. Adrian broke the silence first. "You read lips very well. I have practiced since I was a kid." "And sign language?" I blinked in surprise before nodding slowly. Adrian leaned back slightly, watching me. With those impossible gray eyes. Then something unexpected happened. He lifted one hand awkwardly and signed a single word. "Safe." The motion was clumsy. Stiff. Clearly practiced in secret only minutes earlier. My breath caught completely. Adrian noticed instantly. I probably said it wrong. No, I whispered. You did not. Something warm flickered briefly behind his calm expression. Satisfaction maybe. Tiny. Barely visible. But there. My mother taught me a few signs when I was younger, he admitted quietly. I never expected to use them again. I stared at him, unable to reconcile this version of Adrian with the man whispered about across New York. The feared businessmen surrounded by armed security. The cold strategist men tried to assassinate inside luxury hotels. Yet here he sat after 2 a.m. teaching himself sign language because my hearing aid broke. The contradiction made my chest tighten painfully. Adrian studied my face for a long silent moment before speaking again. You are afraid of me. It was not a question. I looked down at my hands honestly. I think I should be. Silence settled between us again. Heavy this time. Dangerous. Then Adrian leaned slightly closer, his voice softer than before. Claire, he said carefully, making sure I could read every word. If I wanted to hurt you, you would not still be here. Sleep never came that night. I lay awake in the enormous guest bed staring at the ceiling while rain crawled endlessly down the penthouse windows beside me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the streak of blood beneath the hotel suite door again. The black gloves. The silent warning in those men's faces. And Adrian standing in the middle of it all like someone born inside danger instead of afraid of it. Around 4 a.m. I finally gave up trying to sleep. The city outside still glowed silver beneath the storm clouds, restless and awake. I slipped quietly from the bedroom wearing borrowed clothes and padded barefoot across the heated marble floor. The penthouse was almost dark except for low amber lights glowing near the kitchen. I froze when I saw Adrian sitting alone at the massive dining table. He had not slept. Either. His black dress shirt was unbuttoned slightly at the collar now, sleeves rolled to his forearms while files and photographs lay scattered across the table in front of him. Half-empty coffee beside one hand. The sharp glow of Manhattan reflecting in his tired gray eyes. He looked up immediately when he noticed me standing there. You should be asleep. I read the words easily this time. My hearing aid worked better after Sophia repaired it, though everything still sounded slightly underwater. I could say the same thing to you. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth so briefly I almost thought I imagined it. Adrian gestured toward the chair across from him. Come here. I hesitated only a second before walking over. The photographs spread across the table stopped me cold. Security images. Hotel hallways. Elevator footage. Faces circled in red marker. And there in the center was someone I recognized instantly. Daniel Mercer. The Beaumont Grand's operations manager. My stomach dropped hard enough to hurt. No, I whispered. Adrian's eyes sharpened immediately. You know him. I nodded slowly, unable to pull my gaze from the photograph. He manages the VIP floors. Adrian leaned back carefully, studying my reaction. One of my men traced tonight's security breach back to him. The room suddenly felt colder. Daniel had worked at the hotel for years. He smiled at guests. Remembered birthdays. Brought pastries for the overnight housekeeping staff during Christmas. I remembered him helping me carry supply boxes after my hearing aid malfunctioned last month. My chest tightened painfully. You are sure? Adrian's expression hardened instantly. I do not accuse people without proof. He slid another photograph toward me. Daniel standing beside one of the men from the hallway. The same black gloves. Same sharp profile. My pulse stumbled violently. Adrian watched me carefully. Claire. I looked up. You are shaking. I had not even realized it until he said it. My hands trembled visibly against the edge of the table now. If Daniel was involved, my voice cracked slightly. Then he knows I saw them. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Terrible. Adrian stood slowly from his chair. Every movement calm. Controlled. He walked around the table toward me until I could smell coffee and cedar on his clothes again. Yes, he said quietly. Honesty instead of comfort. Somehow worse. Which means you cannot go back to the hotel. Fear crashed through me all at once then. Real fear this time. Bigger than the hallway. Bigger than the gunfire. My apartment. My job. My entire normal life suddenly felt unreachable. I cannot just disappear, I whispered. I have bills. Work. Rent. Adrian stopped directly in front of me. None of that matters right now. It matters to me. The words came out sharper than I intended. For the first time since meeting him, something flickered behind Adrian's eyes. Not anger. Respect maybe. Like he was surprised I pushed back at all. Then his gaze lowered briefly toward my trembling hands before returning to my face. Claire, he said softly, the people who came after me tonight do not leave witnesses behind. The room went silent again except for the rain outside. My breathing turned uneven. Too fast. Adrian noticed instantly. He always noticed. Very slowly, carefully enough not to startle me, he reached forward and covered my shaking hands with his own. Warm. Steady. Strong enough to ground me instantly. Look at me, he said quietly. I did. Storm gray eyes. Exhaustion hidden beneath perfect control. A dangerous man trying very hard not to frighten me. You are under my protection now, Adrian said slowly so I would understand every word. And I do not let people touch what is mine. By the third day inside Adrian Moretti's penthouse, I started understanding something dangerous. The real threat was not his power. It was how safe he made me feel inside it. The storm outside Manhattan finally passed, leaving the city wrapped in pale winter sunlight that reflected against the East River like broken glass. Everything inside the penthouse remained warm and quiet. Too quiet. My entire life had become elevators that required fingerprints, guards who nodded respectfully every time I entered a room, and Adrian appearing beside me almost every hour as if he no longer trusted the world to leave me alone for long. I should have hated it. Instead, I found myself listening for the sound of his footsteps. That terrified me more than anything else. I stood near the kitchen island that afternoon trying unsuccessfully to make coffee in a machine that looked more expensive than my car when Adrian walked in wearing a charcoal suit and black tie. My breath caught for one stupid second before I could stop it. He looked unfairly perfect all the time. Sharp jaw. Dark hair pushed neatly back. Calm gray eyes carrying the exhaustion of someone who slept less than everyone around him realized. Adrian loosened his cuffs slightly while watching me struggle with the machine. You are threatening it. I looked up sharply. This thing has more buttons than a spaceship. Something almost like amusement touched his face. Almost. Adrian stepped beside me close enough for his sleeve to brush my arm lightly as he pressed two buttons with effortless precision. Coffee immediately poured into the cup beneath. Show off, I muttered. His mouth twitched faintly. You are welcome. The moment felt so normal that I forgot for half a second who he really was. Then another man entered the penthouse. Tall. Broad shoulders. Dark suit. A thin scar near his throat disappearing beneath his collar. He stopped the second he noticed me standing beside Adrian. The car is ready, he told Adrian before his eyes shifted toward me carefully. The gala security team also confirmed attendance. Gala. My stomach tightened instantly. Adrian took the coffee from the machine and handed it to me before answering. Good. I looked between them in confusion. What gala? Adrian's attention returned to me slowly. The Beaumont Grand Charity event tonight. Every muscle in my body went cold. No, the word escaped before I could stop it. Absolutely not. Adrian dismissed the other man with a glance before turning fully toward me. Claire. You cannot seriously expect me to go back there. My pulse already raced at the thought alone. The hotel hallways. Daniel Mercer. The blood beneath that sweet door. Adrian stayed calm while I spiraled. Mercer will be there tonight, he said quietly. And I need confirmation before I move against him. So you want me as bait? Silence. Adrian's expression changed instantly. Sharp enough to make me regret the accusation the second it left my mouth. No, he said coldly. I want the people hunting you exposed before they disappear again. I crossed my arms tightly against my chest. Same difference. Adrian stared at me for several long seconds before stepping closer. Not threatening. Never threatening. Just overwhelming in the way storms were overwhelming. You will not leave my sight tonight, he said carefully. Not for 1 second. You cannot promise that. Yes, he replied instantly. I can. Something about the certainty in his voice made my chest tighten painfully again. Adrian reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. My confusion deepened as he opened it carefully in front of me. Inside rested a sleek silver hearing aid more elegant than anything I had ever seen in my life. Tiny crystals shimmered subtly beneath the kitchen lights. I stared speechless while Adrian watched my reaction closely. Custom made, he said quietly. The audiologist delivered it this morning. My throat tightened immediately. Adrian, try it. My hands shook slightly as I lifted the hearing aid from the velvet box. The second I placed it behind my ear, sound rushed back into the world with startling clarity. The soft hum of city traffic 30 floors below. The crackling fireplace. Adrian's steady breathing standing inches away from me. Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. Adrian noticed instantly. His expression softened in that dangerous quiet way only I ever seemed to see. Better? He asked softly. I nodded once, unable to speak. Adrian reached up slowly and adjusted one loose strand of hair behind my ear beside the hearing aid. Gentle again. Always unexpectedly gentle with me. Good, he murmured. Because tonight, I need you to hear me when I tell you to stay close. The Beaumont Grand looked even more beautiful at night. Gold lights spilled across the marble entrance while black luxury cars lined the street beneath falling snow. Everything glittered. Crystal chandeliers. Diamonds. Champagne. Glasses raised by people rich enough to believe danger only happened to other families. 3 nights ago I had worn a housekeeping uniform inside this building. Tonight I stepped out of Adrian Moretti's car wearing a silver gown that did not feel real against my skin. Soft fabric brushed my ankles as cold Manhattan air swept around us. Cameras flashed instantly the second Adrian appeared beside me. The atmosphere changed around him the way weather changed before storms. Men straightened. Women lowered their voices. Security moved subtly closer. Power followed Adrian into every room whether people welcomed it or not. His hand settled lightly against the small of my back as we entered the hotel lobby together. Warmth spread instantly through the thin fabric of my dress. Possessive. Protective. Controlled. I hated how much I leaned into it. Stay close, Adrian murmured near my ear. The new hearing aid carried his voice perfectly clear through the crowded ballroom noise. I glanced up at him. You keep saying that like I am planning to wander off. You would be surprised how often people ignore me. I almost smiled. Almost. The ballroom looked exactly the same as it always had. White orchids. Golden ceilings. String music floating softly above hundreds of conversations. But now I noticed things I had never noticed before. The security near the exits. Men watching Adrian too carefully from across the room. Tension hidden beneath expensive smiles. This world had always existed around me. I had just been invisible enough not to see it. Adrian guided me through the crowd calmly while people greeted him with carefully measured respect. Nobody questioned why I stood beside him. Nobody dared. Then I saw Daniel Mercer near the champagne tower. My stomach dropped instantly. He looked exactly the same. Perfect suit. Friendly smile. Calm eyes. But the second his gaze landed on me, the glass in his hand froze halfway to his mouth. Fear flashed across his face before disappearing completely. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. His fingers pressed slightly firmer against my waist. Do not look away from him, he said quietly. Daniel recovered quickly and started walking toward us through the ballroom. Every instinct inside me screamed to leave. Adrian remained perfectly still beside me. Calm predator energy wrapped in black silk and cold gray eyes. Mr. Moretti, Daniel greeted smoothly once he reached us. It is good to see you again. Adrian's expression never changed. Is it? The temperature between them dropped instantly. Daniel forced a polite smile before looking toward me. Claire. Everyone at the hotel has been worried about you. Liar. The word burned through my chest so hard I almost said it aloud. Adrian stepped slightly closer to me before answering for me instead. Claire will not be returning to work here. Daniel's eyes flickered briefly. Tiny. Fast. But Adrian caught it immediately. That is unfortunate, Daniel replied carefully. She was valued by the staff. Adrian's gaze sharpened into something dangerous beneath the ballroom lights. Funny, he said softly. Because someone inside this hotel tried to have her killed 3 nights ago. Silence. Complete silence. Even without losing his temper, Adrian controlled the entire space around him. Daniel's face paled slightly before he forced another smile. I do not know what you are implying. Adrian leaned closer just enough for only the 3 of us to hear. You should, he said coldly. Because I know exactly what you did. My pulse pounded so hard I could barely breathe. Daniel looked at me then. Really looked at me for the first time since approaching us. Not like a maid anymore. Like a problem still breathing. Fear crawled sharply down my spine. Adrian noticed immediately. Without taking his eyes off Daniel, he reached down and intertwined his fingers firmly with mine beneath the ballroom lights. A public claim. Silent. Absolute. Claire stays beside me now, Adrian said calmly. Which means if anyone touches her again, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Daniel swallowed visibly before stepping backward. Enjoy your evening, Mr. Moretti. Adrian watched him disappear into the crowd without blinking once. Only after Daniel vanished did he finally look down at me. You are shaking. He looked at me like, my voice faltered. Adrian's jaw tightened. Instantly. I know. The music continued playing softly around us while wealthy strangers laughed beside crystal chandeliers completely unaware of the war unfolding inches away from them. Adrian lifted my trembling hand slowly and pressed it against the center of his chest directly above his heartbeat. Steady. Strong. Certain. Then he looked into my eyes and spoke quietly enough that only I could hear him. Nobody in this room scares me, he said. Except the thought of being too late to protect you. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not ballroom silence filled with music and champagne glasses. Real silence. The kind that arrives right before something terrible happens. Adrian noticed it too. His body went still beside me beneath the chandelier lights, gray eyes scanning the crowded ballroom with sudden sharp focus. Around us, wealthy guests kept laughing softly, unaware the atmosphere had shifted completely. Then every phone in the room vibrated at once. A strange ripple passed through the crowd as people reached for glowing screens. Confused whispers spread beneath the music. Adrian pulled his own phone from his pocket, his expression darkening instantly the second he looked down at it. My stomach tightened hard. What happened? He looked up at me immediately. Mercer is gone. Fear slammed through my chest. Adrian grabbed my hand without hesitation and guided me quickly through the ballroom toward the private exit corridor. His security team moved instantly around us, tense now in a way I had not seen before. Fast footsteps. Quick instructions through earpieces. The beautiful hotel suddenly felt dangerous again. Like the walls themselves were watching. Adrian, I whispered as we entered the service hallway behind the ballroom. What does that mean? He stopped walking long enough to look directly at me. It means he knows we are coming for him. Before I could answer, the lights flickered overhead. Once. Twice. Then darkness swallowed the corridor completely. Gasps echoed somewhere deeper inside the hotel. My new hearing aid crackled sharply as emergency alarms started blaring through the building. Red emergency lights flooded the hallway seconds later, painting everything crimson. My breathing turned uneven immediately. Adrian's hand settled firmly on my shoulders. Claire. I focused on his face through the flashing red light. Calm. Controlled. Stay with me. Another tremor shook the building faintly beneath our feet. Somewhere far away glass shattered. Panic finally erupted inside the ballroom behind us. Screaming. Running footsteps. The sound bounced painfully through my hearing aid. Adrian pulled me against his chest protectively as his security team moved ahead down the corridor. We are leaving. Now. We barely made it halfway to the private elevators before smoke started pouring through the ventilation system near the ceiling. Thin gray clouds twisting beneath flashing emergency lights. My pulse skyrocketed instantly. Adrian, he saw the fear on my face immediately. Look at me, he ordered softly. Breathe. I tried. I really tried. But the hallway suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Too loud. Adrian pulled me closer, shielding me from the chaos around us while people rushed past farther down the corridor. Then one of his guards appeared at the intersection ahead, speaking urgently. I caught only fragments through the noise. Garage compromised, cannot use lower exit, Adrian cursed quietly beneath his breath for the first time since I met him. The sound alone terrified me. Alternative route, he ordered instantly. Another violent tremor shook the hotel. The lights overhead burst somewhere nearby, showering sparks across the hallway. Instinctively I flinched backward. Adrian reacted before fear fully reached me. His arms wrapped around me completely, pulling me tightly against him while debris rattled harmlessly across marble floors nearby. Safe. The sign he taught me days ago flashed through my mind unexpectedly. Adrian looked down at me, one hand cupping the side of my face carefully despite the chaos surrounding us. You trust me? He asked. Such a strange question in the middle of disaster. But somehow my answer came instantly. Yes. Something raw crossed his expression then. Almost relief. Adrian guided me quickly through a narrow staff stairwell lit only by dim emergency lights. Smoke curled faintly through the lower floors now while alarms echoed endlessly around us. Halfway down the stairs I stumbled slightly in my heels. Adrian caught me immediately. I am okay, I insisted breathlessly. He ignored me completely. Without warning, he bent and lifted me into his arms. Adrian, I told you already, he interrupted quietly while carrying me down the emergency staircase like I weighed nothing at all. You stay with me. The words wrapped around my chest tighter than fear ever could. By the time we finally reached the underground exit tunnel beneath the hotel, snow had started falling heavily outside. Cold air rushed toward us as security pushed open the steel service doors leading to the alley beyond. Adrian set me down carefully beside the waiting SUV but never released my hand. Across the street, red emergency lights reflected against the falling snow while crowds gathered outside the hotel entrance. Chaos. Sirens. Reporters arriving already. Yet somehow the only thing I could focus on was Adrian standing in front of me beneath the storm-gray sky with snow collecting slowly in his dark hair. He touched my hearing aid lightly beside my ear before signing one careful sentence with slightly clumsy hands. "Not without you." And for the first time in years, silence no longer felt lonely.